Sister and I shared a bed, and when we'd go to bed, I don't know why, but she would take her ankle bone and be hitting it against mine, and I'd holler, "Mom!" Well, my father would say, "If you don't shut up, I'm gonna come up there in a minute." But he took us every summer, every Sunday for a picnic to a place called Sandy Beach or Perrin's Marsh. My mother would pack a big picnic lunch, and we'd go every Sunday swimming. My father was a gentleman. My mother was the boss. Believe me, she was the boss. But he worked away a lot. And when my aunts would ask me, what do I want to be when I grow up? I always said, just like my mother. So, my last memory of my father, when I had to go back, when he was on his deathbed, last words to me was, just like your mother. And the next morning he was gone. But growing up, my sister and I were very close. I loved to dance. Oh, I loved to dance. And I would go with my sister and all of our cousins. We'd all walk to the host house, which had a dance floor, and then we danced to records, and of course it was a big band, you know, Glenn Miller, Tommy Dorsey, all of these big bands. And there was one fella that loved to dance too. And we were dance partners, you might say. Soon as I go in there, we'd look around for each other, and we would dance every dance together. And I loved jitterbug. Not like they did in New York, you know, tossing yourself all over the place, but we would dance, and then polkas, of course. They always had to have a polka in there, and slow dances, but in the mood. Oh boy, when that came up on the, you know, when they played that, everybody went crazy. I was a fair student in school. There was one teacher, Mr. Burnett, I think it was in the 7th grade. Like I said, my father knew everybody, and everybody liked my father. And I remember it was like an observance, well, what would you say, observing the day after Halloween. It was like a day when everyone went up to the cemetery and lit candles and stayed there all day long with your beloved deceased. And this one, it was like after lunch already, he came to me, he says, you could leave, go with your family. And he's Jewish, you know, I guess, but when Helen and I start, well, we were teenagers then when the war broke out. I came home one day, Sunday afternoon. I was at the movie where we always went every Sunday. Not every Sunday, because summers we'd go to the lakes. My father was sitting in his chair listening to the radio, and he looked up at me and he said, the United States is at war. And it was like, war? What happened? The Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. I never even knew about Pearl Harbor. Well, we learned fast. And I graduated in 1944. And my father changed his name. My father he was something, I tell you. I loved him so much. I graduated, my name was Hazinski. Then he said, I'm looking up, and in the Polish spelling, there's an R in there. So we're Hazinski. Okay, Dad, we're Hazinski. But when he married my mother, of course, my grandmother and grandfather, my mother's parents, lived up on a hilltop. See the whole valley. Well, they stayed with them, so my father was able to buy a house, which is the original house that we all were in. I think I was the first one born in that house. Yeah, I think so. And my father was playing baseball with his buddies, and all of a sudden they see a group of men with a hobbling man, which was my father. He broke his leg the day after they were married. Oh, and my grandmother and my grandfather lived up on the hilltop, and they had a swing. That's why I always wanted to swing, because it reminded me of being up at my grandmother and grandfather's house. And you could, at night, you could just see the whole lit up valley, and we'd sit there and sing songs and swing on that swing. Those were memories that meant something to me. But I was a mama's girl. I had a great family. Christmases, we had the Christmas Eve supper. My mother would be cooking and baking all week long for this one evening. And we'd have the Christmas wafers. My father, before we sat down to eat in the living room, he would put up the tree. Then after we finished our meal and got the dishes all done, we'd all go out and start decorating the tree. Then, and in the meantime, while we're decorating the tree, we always had the radio on. Listen to Jack Benny, Fred Allen, and Death Valley days. We'd all sit around the radio like you would watching television, and whatever you thought was going on, it was great. I remember Death Valley days, though. That was something. The 20 Mule Team. But like I said, my father would put the tree up. Then we would all go in and decorate it. Then we had to go to bed. My older brother, Tony, had the job of decorating the bottom, with the houses and the train and everything. And we all knew what we were having because we'd find them in the closets before Christmas, and we all knew. But we'd tell our mother, one year I said, I want ice skates. So it was Christmas Eve afternoon, and I said, Mom, I know what we have, what I'm having as a gift. So Helen and I and Rita, which lived next door, we want to go ice skating. Well, I think I sat on that ice more than I did standing up. My ankles would go in, She even bought skates that had support to give me strength in my ankles. I still couldn't skate. Oh dear. But my favorite thing was dancing. I loved to dance, jitterbug, polkas, the jitterbug. I love that. And then you bought me that tape of Glenn Miller, and when I hear that song come on, it's like everything flashes in front of me, like I'm back in my 16 and 17 year. Oh, but I started my high school first year, the beginning of the war, and I graduated when peace was signed. It was a long, we had so many boys that didn't graduate. They joined the service. And I was on the yearbook staff, and they usually pick a teacher to dedicate, you know, their favorite teacher. And I said, we always have a teacher. This is war, you know, we're at war. So they had the photographer go down to take a picture of the what is that?
I don't want to.
The photographer went down, and we had this big board at the city hall with every name of the graduating class. For everyone from Swearsville, their name was on that board, and we lost a number of. I remember there was a Michael's boy who was the first one killed from our little town. And then there was George, what was his name? But he was barely 17, and he had his father sign papers to allow him to join the Navy. He was killed. Next door neighbor, Lewis, he died in that siege on the beach. What was that called now?
Normandy? D-Day?
D-Day might have been, I don't know. Because it was summertime, around June, I guess, and we're all sitting, everyone sat on their front porch. We all had big front porches with rockers and gliders. And for some reason or other, we were all able to talk. We must have loud voices. But we see this soldier, actually like someone in the upper class with their uniform walking down the street. And Mrs. Pugh said, oh, somebody's gonna have a visit. That was a bad sign. What happened? He stopped at their house and informed her that her son was killed. That poor woman, from that day on, she went downhill. I mean, she just mourned. We all kind of couldn't forget Lewis. That was his name, Lewis. But my family itself, we were a happy family. Each one took care of everybody. And I was my mother's pal. Like I said, we went, whenever she wanted somebody to go with her, it was me. And she loved flowers. In the springtime, she'd plant all these flowers in the front yard and in the backyard. We had a couple of plum trees. Yeah, they were good plums. I used to love to pick them. But Helen and I were very close growing up. And then Marianne and Joan, they were pals. But when my brother had to go to war, my oldest brother, that was a sad day. My father was going to take us up to the somewhere near Harrisburg, I guess, where he would be for the day until they start putting them out into different branches. We're not even on our way, just about getting started, and the car broke down, so we never got to see my brother on his last. He served in the Air Force on a reconnaissance plane. I don't know if he saw action or not. Didn't want to know. But all these memories of the holidays, the summers my father and mother would take us swimming. We were a close family.